One thing I've always feared in my life is to suffer in vain. I've seen men lose touch with their reality in so many ways and are consumed by the reality unfolding before them behind the wall. See men take their lives. It's not easy for any human to deal with constant struggle, no matter what type of struggle it is. It'll beat you the hell down. Getting up from a good beating um, takes a will that most people aren't too familiar with. Greetings and salutations. I'm Victor DeSordi, and welcome to my channel at 28 To Persevere. Thanks for watching. At the end of this video, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video among the many others I have made available on my channel. Well, today I'm thinking about the name of my channel, at 28 To Persevere. We talk about a lot, and I in particular talk a lot about perseverance, fortitude, strength, endurance, and being able to overcome struggle and pain, suffering. We all know that the hallmarks of greatness are forged through struggle and sacrifice. I mean, that's established in world history and human history. But the perseverance that I'm speaking about and the life in accordance to how I lived it for the 28 years of imprisonment is a word that has a profound meaning to me personally. And it has affected the lives of many others who are immediately and collectively associated with me in my life and everything that I've gone through. The will to persevere. It is something that I want to touch upon today in reference to the life that I lived while incarcerated, but also to the way I live my life every day. Perseverance is everything to me. It literally tells not only my tale and my story in particular that is forged through the struggle of enduring some horrible situations and circumstances, some of which were self-induced, others were imposed upon me. And, I accepted my fate, and I don't cry about it or bitch and moan and ask for sympathy or anything of that nature. I know there are those out there in the world that can empathize with everything that I've spoken about thus far in the videos that I've shared with the world. And I am eternally grateful to everybody who has expressed that empathy with me and the compassion that has been shown and the understanding. And I'm eternally grateful for all of that. But while I was incarcerated, I went to prison at 19 years old, and the word perseverance wasn't really something that I even knew what it was, the definition of it. People throw around a lot of words, and they say that they abide by them, or that's their mantra, and then people quote mottos and certain references that they believe that they're inspired by, or that defines their lives. And I'm all for that. I encourage that. Anything that can inspire someone to overcome the struggles of their lives, whatever it is, I'm all for it. I've always admired the will to persevere and the strength to endure what can seem unendurable. But I also know that when I was incarcerated, a 19-year-old kid, that type of perseverance that I had inside me, seeing the things that were unfolding before me, engaging in the world that I engaged in, that daily grind of life that beats you down and chews you up and spits you out, you get changed into something that you weren't conscientious of before. And, I'm really aware of the fact that the reason why I titled my channel at 28 To Persevere is because perseverance is my personification. It's something that defines everything I do in my life and continue to do. The struggles that I've endured personally and the struggles that my family and all my kith and kin that have ever been associated with me have endured collectively alongside me is something that I truly admire, that will to persevere that we've done collectively. We hunkered down. We went against all the odds. There was many things in relation to my case where there was corruption, deep-rooted corruptions. There was connections to the families of the victims in this case. When it came to the judge and his association with them, there was a collective sigh of horror at the reality that unfolded that night and how it unfolded. I never saw it coming, you know. I never saw that reality unfold before me, or my response to it. And as I stated on previous videos, I own what I've done and my deeds, and I've suffered and continue to suffer accordingly as a result of them. And in the eyes of some, it might be justice. You know, the life was taken, and a precious life at that, as all life is. And I own that, and I never walk away from it. I look it straight in the eye, and I say to myself, okay, what can I do now? How can I live that will to perseverance so that, you know, the struggles that I've endured and the things that I have done will have more redemption than sorrow. You know, one thing I've always feared in my life is to suffer in vain. Those that suffer in vain for suffering's sake, where there's no redemptive quality to that suffering. That's the worst fate a person could endure. And I've seen it firsthand in prison. I've seen guys that just suffer to suffer. They never understood why they suffered the way they suffered, and they endured it. Some of which did not. Some of which you know, drove them crazy. A lot of men lost their minds in prison. I've seen the mental collapse of lucidity. I've seen men lose touch with their reality in so many ways and are consumed by the reality unfolding before them behind the wall. I've seen men take their lives. I've seen men just engage in conduct that would be deplorable to any civilized human being. But it was a daily life that I lived and saw firsthand while incarcerated. I've touched upon my conduct early in my incarceration when I was 19, 20, 21 years of age, and a little older. I talked about, you know, the anger that I harbored, the festering of rage that accumulated over time through not only the conduct of the individuals around me affecting me, but my own conduct, my response to it. I was very bitter and angry, not so much at the world per se, but at your judiciary and the Department of Corrections in particular. And you know, I looked at the injustice system as a corrupt entity, and I still do to a large extent because you know, the suffering that my family and I endured um, when we were up against every odd that you can imagine through that system that wasn't really structured in a fashion to actually look out for me or my family. You know, I was the criminal, so as anybody convicted of a crime knows, there's no sense of redemption to be had through the eyes of the system. It's a system of retribution, not redemption. And you know what you make of it while you're incarcerated makes everything. It tells your story. It is your lasting legacy. And when I was young, the anger that I felt, and you know, I used to go on visits, and I would sit there with my family. Before I was married, it was my mother all the time. She would come once or twice, sometimes 3 times a week, and she would cry, and the horrors that she would endure seeing her son in the deplorable condition I was in mentally. You know, I was engaged in the world around me and falling prey to that mentality, the harsh reality of prison life and what it does to you mentally, how it hardens your sensibilities. You lose touch with any type of form of civility, and then your ability to rationalize is skewered by the irrational nature of your environment, which is predicated on a predatory mindset. So, you know, why as I was incarcerated early in life, you know, I was a teenager when I went into prison. And obviously, you know, when I was released, I was a 47-year-old grown man. But through the process of incarceration, you know, I remember the visits. I remember seeing the pain and the struggle in the eyes of my family, and every tear that my mother cried just fueled. It was like fuel to the fire inside me. It just burned this scorching heat of rage and the wrath inside me that I had for the individuals that were attacked me the night of October 8th, 1994, and the judiciary that I felt was against me, you know, and stacked stacked against me in such a fashion that there was really no chance for us to get a fair shake or fair trial. So, you know, there are many various factors, and that type of anger was really a part of my life every day. It was the dark passenger within myself that I carried with me. And, you know, now hindsight, you know, I look back and I realize how close I was to the edge, you know, to the abyss, and how close it was for me to lose touch with my better self and to really have the desire to be a better human being. When around me, I didn't see any forms of humanity that was worth emulating. that would even give me a semblance of sanity or hope in the betterment of man. Because everything in prison is predicated on the harsh reality of the environment, which doesn't give itself to any types of civility or compassion or empathy in the sense that people are genuinely concerned about your well-being, from the medical care you receive to the food or lack of quality of it, to the harsh reality by the guards and then your fellow prisoners. The give and take of the hierarchy there and how you move and interact with individuals around you. I remember, the will to persevere. That was always a focal point. Perseverance. And my wife was a friend of mine prior to incarcerated. She would come see me and we would talk, and she continued to be stalwart in her support for me and being truly understanding of what my family collectively was going through and what I was going through personally. And she would listen, and her perseverance, um, which is the core of my life, in the sense of I understood collectively for the hardships that she endured in her life, the struggles that she went through at a young age. And her and I bonded on that struggle. As I said before, nothing great ever comes without struggle and sacrifice. And her and I defined that in more ways than one. And I understood that perseverance. And then we were married and we had children, and my children were strong, unimaginably so, in the sense of what they had to go through um, with their own struggles and their ability to persevere through that struggle. And they continue to do this day. They're remarkable human beings in every sense of the word, and I'm truly proud of, and I love them with all my heart, because I understand that that struggle that we grew together collectively was all predicated on perseverance. When I see my collective family and every family and friend, every kith and kin that ever supported me and what we went through, I saw their perseverance, their fortitude, and that was something that truly inspired me and inspires me to this day. And one of the reasons why I named this channel at 28 to Persevere, because the 28 years significant of the time I spent, but the perseverance is really where it's at. I mean, we're all growing, we're all learning, we're all trying to be better human beings to a large extent, and we give power to what we give power to. And some people are skewered in their beliefs, and it's self-destructive or destructive to others. And unfortunately, that's the prerogative of the mentality and what people give power to associated with it. But I know from my time in prison, that will to persevere helped me get through the struggles. I saw that perseverance in others, that strength, and that truly inspired me. I knew when I married my wife and when I held my child, my son in particular, my firstborn, I held him in my arms for the first time, and I looked in his eyes, and the innocence and the purity, and I understood right then and there my responsibility, that I had to hunker down and calm down and understand that the world was bigger than the world behind the bars that I shut every day into my cell on that wall, the asphalt jungle that I lived in. And this channel that I have now, and my ability to reach all of you, perhaps with an understanding that perseverance is really the gold standard in life, everything you go through. And I truly empathize with the struggle of humanity, when people share their stories with me and the things they're going through. It doesn't have to be anyone who did time in prison, but I'm talking about life, life struggles. And for me, personally, um, I understand it, and I can relate to it on so many levels. And if I can reach someone and perhaps give them a better understanding about themselves and the world around them. I mean, the world is a scary place to someone who is not really aware of what's going on around them. I mean, you never can tell the next man what they're thinking, and the violence unfolding beyond the wall is astronomical. I mean, you can see it on the daily grind, which is the news, which I tend to avoid. I'm not really into the propagandists that spew it constantly on a constant loop. I mean, I live the anger and the violence every day inside the walls of the prison system. But I just really understand perseverance, and to me, that will to persevere is something that I knew had to define everything I did in my life. I knew that that would be the avenue, that would be the driving force behind my actions. in a positive and constructive fashion. I looked at it, pain, everybody says, pain is the worst thing in the world, and understandably so, especially physical pain. When you go through it, it's all consuming. It distracts you from doing the simplest tasks around the house if you're in constant discomfort physically. And the mental anguish on top of it, it's a horrific thing. But also, pain can be productive. It can be good. It can drive you. It can motivate you. Mental anguish sometimes can be filtered in such a fashion that you gain some sort of productive means to an end through the pain. For me, it was working out. I hit the weights. I was constantly in the weight pit. I mean, the iron pile was my salvation, and I've touched on that in previous videos. My desire to work out and to be fit mentally and physically and spiritually, my spiritual endeavors, being an Odinist and being devout in my faith and my way of life, which every day I walk it, live it. That kept me on the straight and narrow, so to speak, to understand my better nature and the natural course of events and what my place in it was. It is, you know, we do what we need to do in this life, victory or Valhalla, and we take our place among many warriors beyond this pale of existence eventually. And, I try to live my ways now with an understanding that what I went through made me who I am today. And I have to take pride in the fact that everyone around me that has continued to be by my side, continue to support me. Those are the ones that this channel is truly dedicated to. It's not so much about me or my story, it's about everyone else that has supported me and has made this even possible for me to sit here and talk to all of you. Just recently, I celebrated my third year anniversary of being released from incarceration. I was a free man 3 years ago and walked out of the Woodburn Correctional Facility, 177 pounds, wide eyed and all, eternally grateful for the opportunity laid out before me to hug my family, bawling like a baby, so grateful and gracious to everyone around me because I understood what it meant to all of them. Being in prison for as long as I was, it comes with a price. The prison is meant to beat you down. It's somebody watches videos like, yeah, it's not supposed to be a daycare center. You deserve your fate and suffer accordingly. You're a criminal. And that's your prerogative to feel that way, and I wouldn't try to convince anyone otherwise. But I also know what put me in the position I was in that night, and there were things I shouldn't have done, and I shouldn't have been engaging in the drugs and the party lifestyle so hardcore that I was. I mean, I was out of touch with my own reality in a sense, and put myself unwarrantedly in a position where I shouldn't have really done. You know, Woefully, I understand that now. I'm in a position, I'm older and wiser, with a deeper understanding of not only my own nature, but the nature of others around me through the years of incarceration and studying how people move and how they act and socialize and communicate in general and what they give power to. It's very significant in how I move now. But, understanding prison and understanding the hardships of everyone around me and what it took to get through the things that we got through. My family and I, had to endure what we endured. We maintained a solid family base, and the nucleus never faltered or cracked. There was never a wavering moment where my wife was like, "Okay, I've had enough of this." Her and I used to joke, and it was a little joke that we had. We shared. It was the 5 year mark. Always said, "Well, you'd be gone in 5 years," because usually, anyone who's had relationships with a woman in prison, that the male was incarcerated, and I'm sure it was likewise women incarcerated. Usually relationships don't last more than 5 years. I mean, that's just been my experience from what I bore witness to. But my wife was not going anywhere, and she is the definition of perseverance, and as are my children. There's a song by the band Hatebreed. If anyone's familiar with that band in particular is one of my all-time favorite bands, and that song is called Perseverance. I absolutely love this song. While incarcerated, I had there were one of their cassettes that had that song on it, and through my Walkman, I would play this song, put my headphones on my head, and I would pace myself and listen to this song over and over and over again on a constant loop. I mean, I wore this cassette out to the point that it was completely warped by the time I had to throw it out. But I used to play that song over and over again, and it truly defined how I felt every day, the will to persevere. So anyone who's ever heard the song "Perseverance" by the band Hatebreed, they understand what I'm saying and can empathize wholeheartedly with me at this stage, understanding what we went through as a collective people. The song really highlights that collective will to persevere, which I truly related to and continue to relate to. Perseverance is a topic that can be universally discussed because it affects so many. It's a part of our innate nature to understand it and to live it. When I was in prison, I would see men collapse due to the exhaustion of that life, and their ability to persevere was just withered, withered down and beaten to a pulp. And there were guys that I was super close to. One guy in particular comes to mind, and he was just beaten down by the environment, beaten down by the daily grind and the life that we lived. And he just couldn't go on anymore. He couldn't deal with the suffering, and he got heavily into the drug game, and I tried to pull him away from all that and get him on the weight pit and try to get him to services with wilderness services, which I facilitated at the time, and just trying to get his mind right, understanding that you're being led astray by the world around you, understanding that it's the harsh reality we deal with. I mean, it's not easy for any human to deal with constant struggle, no matter what type of struggle it is. It'll beat you the hell down, and getting up from a good beating um, takes a will that most people aren't too familiar with. I mean, people sometimes are immobilized by cutting their finger, a little cut to the finger. They're just devastated by it. So I use that not to simplify it, but it's the reality of life and the struggles mentally in prison. This one guy in particular, what I saw him go through, and eventually, as I said, he got heavy into the drug game, and he died. He perished in his cell from a drug overdose, or a heroin drug overdose. I believe it was fentanyl, and they found him hunched over on the edge of his bed, his hands in his bucket. He was doing laundry because in prison you have these buckets that you get, and you get when you pass out water, you fill up the water bucket and do your laundry in the bucket or whatnot. And allegedly he was doing his laundry at night, and he was high, and he OD'd, and they found him hunched over with his hands in his bucket, cold. And that really affected me. That was horrific, and he locked me a few cells from me, and I was pretty close to this guy, and we spent about 3 or 4 years together in the Auburn Correctional Facility. But that highlighted perseverance to me too. I tried everything that I could do, and in the world that we lived in, to try to get away from that game. But at the end of the day, every man is their own man, and you make this decisions that you make, and we live by them or die as a result of them at times. So it's that reality that reminds me how important it is to persevere. I mean, that was just one of many examples. But this video was basically about the will to persevere, and I just wanted to touch upon that topic because it's the very nature of my channel is that 28 to persevere, the name itself, which I wanted to highlight during this video. So thanks for the time. Appreciate y'all. Much love and respect. Hit me up with a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. Until next time, go with the gods and persevere.